Top 10 Most Iconic Moments in Space Exploration. Starting from 1957's Sputnik launch by USSR space agencies, explored many parts of the universe, still continued. They had touched the moon, walked in space, explored the red planet, recorded signals from the outer solar system, and reached different corners of the universe time by time. Here are top 10 iconic moments in the history of space exploration. The first artificial Earth satellite, Sputnik 1, was launched by the Soviet Union on October 4, 1957. The first human to go into space, Yuri Gagarin, was launched, again by the Soviet Union, for a one-orbit journey around Earth on April 12, 1961. Within 10 years of that first human flight, American astronauts walked on the surface of the moon. Apollo 11 crew members Neil Armstrong and Edwin Buzz Aldrin made the first lunar landing on July 20, 1969. A total of 12 Americans on 6 separate Apollo missions set foot on the moon between July 1969 and December 1972. Since then, no humans have left Earth orbit, but more than 500 men and women have spent as many as 438 consecutive days in space. Starting in the early 1970s, a series of Soviet, Russian from December 1991, space stations, the U.S. 1. Apollo 13 Space Rescue. Apollo 13 was NASA's third space program to land on Moon. It launched on April 17, 1970. On the second day after making a journey of 200,000 miles, one of the oxygen tank had exploded. Many power systems and life-supporting types of equipment were damaged as a result of the massive explosion. The pressure within the compartment also raises by 1,000 times. Once of the fuel cells of Apollo 3 got drained because of the unavailability of oxygen. In that situation, a safe lunar landing became impossible, and the crew was forced to abort the mission and to return to Earth. At the same time, NASA engineers determined that entire oxygen would run out from Apollo 13 before the crew reached Earth. But they managed to reach Earth by April 17 using the lunar module. 2. SpaceshipOne, the first manned private flight. SpaceshipOne is the first ever manned private flight that launched it first in the year 2004. It used to fly at a boundary of 100,000 meters. In 2004, this spaceflight won the price of Ansari X Prize worth $10 million. In the competition, SpaceshipOne flew in the suborbital plane with 3 passengers. It also became the first spaceflight to fly at an altitude of 50,000 feet with 2 turbojet White Knights, the mothership. 3. Hubble Space Telescope, Revolution in Space Observation. The Hubble Space Telescope is the largest and most versatile optical telescope that launched in the year 1990. It was originally developed by NASA, along with a contribution of the European Space Agency. Situated in the lower Earth orbit, it managed to capture high-resolution images in the sky, which led to making deep study of space. It also became the first space telescope that has a design that allows to make repairments by astronauts. The images from different parts of the sky captured by the Hubble Space Telescope also helped scientists to make deep studies about the expansion of the universe. It also helped NASA to monitor the space shuttles, spacewalks, and different procedures in space. 4. International Space Station, Habitable Artificial Satellite. An International Space Station is launched in the year 1998, an artificial habitable satellite situated in lower Earth orbit. It is the largest artificial body in space and can even be observed by the naked eye at appropriate times. The International Space Station is managed and used by 5 different space agencies: NASA, ESA, CSA, Roscosmos, and JAXA. ISS acts as a home for astronauts, and they can make different experiments within it. It manages more than 20 times more signals than that of spacecraft, also used for testing spacecraft instruments. 5. Sputnik I, first artificial Earth satellite. It is the first ever artificial satellite, launched back in 1957 by the Soviet Union. The successful launching of Sputnik I became the start of the space age. It was a 23-inch spherical-shaped satellite. It had the power to calculate the density of the atmosphere and for transmitting radio signals. Sputnik I sent signals to Earth for 22 days after the launch and finally burned on 4th January 1958. 6. Viking Eye, first successful Mars landing. Viking Eye is one of two spacecraft of the Viking mission from NASA. The one is Viking U. It was launched back on 20th August 1975. Viking 2 also followed it and successfully landed on Mars by 20th July 1976, becoming the first ever spacecraft to touch the red planet. It made long study on Mars for more than 2307 days. The high-resolution photos of Mars sent by both Viking Eye and Viking 2 revolutionized the entire concept of Mars. It also made a deep study of vapor in the Martian atmosphere and tested samples from the surface of Mars. It helped the scientists to get deep knowledge about the atmosphere and surface condition of Mars. 7. Voyager Eye, farthest man-made object from Earth. Voyager Eye is the first ever man-made object to enter interstellar space. It launched back in 1977 with the mission of making a deep study of solar systems and held the record of operating for 36 years. It went out of the solar system on 12 September 2013, actually 12 billion miles from the Sun. Scientists determined that Voyager Eye traveled through plasma for more than 1 year after entering interstellar space. Voyage also detected the pressure variation between the edge of the solar system and interstellar space. 8. Apollo 8, first spacecraft that circled the Moon. Apollo 8 is the first ever spacecraft from NASA that entered Moon's orbit. In this manned spacecraft, launched back in 1968, Frank Borman, James Lovell, and William Anders are the crew of the Apollo 8 mission. It successfully revolves on Moon's orbit and safely returned back to Earth. The crew of Apollo 8 became the first ever human to watch Earth as the entire planet. The photograph they took from Moon's orbit, the Earthrise, also became one of the iconic photographs in the history of mankind. 9. Yuri Gagarin, first man in space. On 12 April 1961, Major Yuri Gagarin held the record of first human to enter space. Vostok I was the spacecraft that took him to space, operated by the Space Agency of the Soviet Union. It also became the first human spaceflight in the history of space exploration. The mission duration of Vostok I was 1 hour and 48 minutes, managed to separate Yuri Gagarin from the spacecraft at the right position in space. 10. Man on Moon. On 20th July 1969, NASA held a record of being the first space agency to put man on the Moon. On that day, Neil Armstrong became the first ever human to touch Moon, and Buzz Aldrin followed him. Apollo 11 was the spacecraft used for the manned Moon mission. Michael Collins piloted the spacecraft. They collected samples from Moon's surface and took photographs. They also put an American flag on Moon's surface before they returned back to the spacecraft. Finally, on 24th July 1969, they safely reached home Earth. What do you think of our video? Let me know in the comments section below. Before you go, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.